Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Peace be unto you. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here among you, and glad to have this platform to be able to speak the word of God and to understand what my place is in a time such as this. Brother and sister, also for you to understand what place this is, what place you're in a time such as this. Brothers and sisters, God has blessed us with life and limb. God has blessed us with a mind to do, and God has blessed us with a heart to feel. And brothers and sisters, there's no better time than now than to do the work of God. There's no better time than now than to do the work of God, and I'm very happy about it. I want to read to you some history because our time is up and our Savior has come. Our time is up and our Savior has come. And I want to read to you some history to let you know. We have to talk about what's going on, because if you find out what's going on around the world, then you'll understand why Donald Trump is acting such a fool. You understand why the duck is quacking. Is that right or wrong? So we need to realize that we have nationalisms becoming more apparent because of the revolution that is going on. Every country is in a revolution, brothers and sisters, whether you accept that or not. Every country is in a revolution. And I intend to read from the devil's manuscript himself, his manuscript of world history, modern 1200 to present. That's 1200 AD to present. And we've got some good information on here to be able to read so that you'll know what's going on. And you have to research your history. You don't research your history, brothers and sisters, then there's no way that you can properly understand what is happening. There's no way. We have to study our history. We have to know what's going on with our government. We have to understand what's happening with our culture. We have to understand what is happening to our economy. When we say the government here of America, okay, we're going to touch on this right quick. Then we're going to jump on to some knowledge of deliverance, right? But we have to talk about government, what the government, the European government, the white government of white Americans, not your government, because you don't have a government. You're in bondage of the white man's government. The white man has government. He's established his kingdom, so to speak, all over this land. You remember how Shirley Caesar sang a song, Satan, we're going to tear your kingdom down. You've been building your kingdom all over this land. But Satan, we're going to tear your kingdom down. Now, we need to, first of all, talk about activism. Talk activism and understand what it is. Understand how powerful activism is in a place that pushes liberation. America pushes equality. It pushes liberation. It pushes pro-choice. That's what it says. That's what it says. So we have no alternative than to believe that. Now, don't do as they say. Or rather, don't do as they do, right? The government's going to work for you. You have to understand it and study it. Now, I think a great date, excuse me, brothers and sisters, I'm sure you understand. I think a great date for us, and one of the best examples, and this example is also in the Library of Congress, is must have started in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York. Activists garnered to promote women's rights and suffrage, the ability to vote. And I'm going to explain all this to you so you can understand exactly what's going on. Because you have to understand what's at stake. What's at stake? The white man seeks total control under Trump's regime. So they're going to do everything they can to put an executive reversal It won't be a ratified reversal of what's been done. It'll be executive. So in other words, because Trump is in office, he can have executive power, right, for these 4 years. He can have executive power. He can execute it. Something that Barack Obama never took advantage of. We have to talk about it, brothers and sisters. We got to talk about it. And under an executive order, things could have happened in Obama's administration. Under an executive order. Because when you at some point a CEO, because that's what he is, with executive privilege, can choose what he will. With executive privilege, he can choose what he will. And what he feels morally or what his core beliefs are concerning the system and the conscience he want to put forward in challenging that system when it has affected people morally, socially, spiritually, and psychologically. Now, no race in America has been affected by the progress of mobilization of America than the black man. The black man has been affected since day one because it's because of him and on his back that this corporation has been built. Now, everybody has gotten rights as a result of what was written except blacks. Take, for example, this 1848, the Seneca Falls, New York, activists garnered to promote the women's right and suffrage, the ability to vote in the convention's declaration of sentiments. Organizers Lucretia Mott and Elizabeth Cady Stanton declared all men and women are created equal. They demanded women deserve the right to vote and hold office, hold property, manage their own incomes, and be the legal guardian of their children. The Seneca Falls Convention was landmark in the history of women's rights. Now, I want you to take notice to understand, because this is where it all comes from, that white women are the reason you're catching so much hell in America today, because she never had rights. The white man treat her like a piece of property too. That's why she's out fighting for rights. But there had to be a vehicle to guarantee and garner the mobilization and power for women's rights. Right? The only successful and justifiable vehicle for women's rights would be the mobilization of the ex-slave black man and woman in America. Because the law had to be amended. The law had to be amended to give you rights. It had to be. Because once the emancipation was over, they had to discuss your citizenship. They had to make you a citizen. So that's where we are. That's where we are. This is what we're talking about. This is the discussion. You are a mass mobilizer because of your spiritual and emotional conscience and your psychological depth of suffering. You are a massive mobilizer. But everyone has used you to get rights that even you can get. Right? And this goes from race to custom to culture all the way to families. The black family is in oppression and under oppression and is subject to oppression. The system is used against him. It doesn't represent him or her. And it puts them in a position where they're under the crippling yoke of the system to make it survive. For instance, A lot of black men and women have been falsely accused of crime. Falsely accused. Served time in jail. They knew they was innocent anyway. They ended up suing the system years later. But the fact is that they knew they were innocent. Right? But to justify the system, they could pick you up and make you guilty of anything they want to make you guilty of. As a matter of fact, a black man don't have to ever do any crime. He could be accused of crime, right? Even with his license, just with a simple license, could cost the black man his life. Because in this oppression, they know that the time is over. They know that the time for them to exercise authority to us is over. And they don't know what else to do. This is why they're killing so many of us. It's why they began to kill so many of us after slavery. Right? And as soon as slavery was over, you had black cities to be built overnight. Right? Because who carried the jobs? Who ran the hospitals? Who ran the banks? Who ran the stores? You did all of that on the plantation. Who harvested the crop? Who understood plant science prior to even getting here? You had all of this knowledge. White man couldn't make it without you. Then he used you, and then after that, he didn't know what to do with you because he still needed you to work in the factories and didn't want to pay you then. And not to mention sharecropping, which was a second form of slavery, the 13th Amendment, which ensured the prison system. It is a catalyst for bondage. To be here in America and to be black is to be in bondage. Whether you got a Trump or a Biden, you're in bondage. It affects you separately depending on the leader that is in office. Nonetheless, you're still in bondage. You have to understand that you are not free. Civil rights didn't free you. It doesn't matter that Trump rescinded the 1965 and 1964 Civil Rights Act. It doesn't matter. Even if he did nothing to it, you are in bondage. There's no such thing as a nonviolent revolution or a peaceful revolution. Run and guided by the government. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. So you got to have some understanding. You got to have some understanding. Now, let's talk about reform. Because we got to get here before we can talk about individual or micro oppression. Micro social oppression. We first must talk about macro social oppression, a broader form of oppression, right? That blacks are feeling globally. Then we can talk about the micro form of oppression that we're experiencing individually. Abolitionism, reform movements to provide rights and equality extended to freedom for enslaved people and the end of serfdom. Abolitionism, the followers in the 18th century, or rather movement to end the Atlantic slave trade and free all enslaved people, gained followers in the 18th century. Slave trading was banned earlier than slavery itself. The first states to ban the slave trade was Denmark in 1803, Great Britain in 1807, the United States in 1808. In most countries, the slave system depended on a steady supply of new enslaved people in order to function. As a result, as soon as the slave trade stopped, slavery began to decline. In most parts of the Americas, slavery was abolished within 30 years of the end of the slave trade. The United States was the rare country where numbers increased after importation of slaves, enslaved people ended. The last country in the Americas to end slavery was Brazil in 1888. Brazil has a high population of blacks. As you can see, slavery was a global phenomenon and is still today a global phenomenon. And all of those states that fought against slavery are under financial yoke, are under a great financial yoke now because they don't give them any money. If you look at Haiti, Haiti doesn't get any money for slavery. Haiti doesn't get any money. It's war-torn. The end of serfdom in Europe have been declining as the economy changed from agrarian to industrial. Peasants' revolts pushed leaders toward reform. Queen Elizabeth I abolished serfdom in 1574. The French government abolished all feudal rights of the nobility in 1789. Alexander II of Russia, abolished serfdom in 1861. The Russian emancipation of 23 million serfs was the largest simple emancipation of people in bondage in human history. Now, let's talk about the different kinds of bondage. We have social bondage, political bondage, cultural bondage, right? For financial purposes, all under capitalism. But we also must talk about religious bondage and religious slaveholders, like the Jews, the Hasidic Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. And another word called Zionism. We have to talk about it. If we don't talk about this, brothers and sisters, you don't understand. And you won't understand. We have to talk about Zionism and these levels of oppression before we can talk about how the black man is individually oppressed. See, if you can talk about how we are globally oppressed, then you'll be able to understand how we are spiritually and mentally oppressed, right? Because the college system still belongs to certain powers. The black colleges belong to the black boule. The black boule took the black colleges and pushed them into what? Becoming universities, where they still had power, right? Because the colleges were in debt. They'll give them money through United Negro College Fund. Also, they have the presidents that send the colleges money. They own the colleges, so the colleges stay in debt. They consistently stay in debt. So it's a game going on of control, right? And most black colleges started out as religious institutions, right? And they were also agricultural universities, right? All right, so Zionism, which controlled this form of setup, Zionism, yet another ism in the 19th century, was the emergence of Zionism, the desire of Jews, listen, to reestablish an independent homeland where their ancestors had lived in the Middle East. After centuries of battling anti-Semitism, that's what they say. Now I want you to understand that Jesus, Yahshua Asa, Jesus, the one they called Jesus, he said there are those that call themselves Jews and are not. These are the ones he's talking about. I just want to let you know. Because the true Jews are under bondage. The black man in America is a Jew. The red man in America is a Jew. The man of Africa, the Hugh man, across the globe is a Jew. Everyone attached to him across the globe are real Jews. There's no such thing as a nationalistic Jew, not by blood. Want you to understand what's going on. The man has harvested everything from you, from your organs to your skin to your religion. He's literally harvested everything from you. He had no identity, he has no culture, he has no place to really call his own, so he steals everything from you and I. You have to know that. And they know that the time is over. They don't want to recompense what they've stolen, so they continue to give setbacks of every gain that you've had, every political gain, which are not real gains. You have to understand that. And while they give these setbacks, it's not going to mean anything, right? Because if you're wise enough to know, you never had it anyway. You never had it. There's no such thing as equal rights when it comes to you. You never had it. People died in civil rights absolutely for no reason. To them personally, they had a reason. Culturally, there was a reason. But politically, it was a trick. So the desires of Jews, the so-called Jews, to reestablish an independent homeland where their ancestors have lived in the Middle East. After centuries of battling quote-unquote anti-Semitism, hostility toward Jews and pogroms, violent attacks against Jewish communities, many European Jews had concluded that living in peace and security was not a realistic hope. To be safe, Jews need to control their own land. Leading the movement was an Austro-Hungarian Jew, that's what he called himself, Theodor Herzl's Dreyfus Affair. Right? Let's talk about the Dreyfus Affair. Support for Zionism increased after a scandal in France known as the Dreyfus Affair in 1894. We're going to talk about the Dreyfus Affair. In 1894, Alfred Dreyfus, a military officer who was Jewish, was convicted of treason against the French government. However, the conviction had been based on forged documents by people promoting anti-Semitism. Dreyfus was ultimately pardoned at the time in prison, but the case illustrated how widespread anti-Semitism was in France, one of the countries where Jews seemed least oppressed. Now, white Jews are not oppressed. Every time in a book or on television or on internet, every time they talk about the black man being under oppression, heavy oppression, the Jews will jump in there some way, start talking about the Holocaust. Start talking about Hitler's Holocaust. You had Jews helping to fund Hitler and the Germans during the war. So this to let you know it's nothing but a game to control stuff. They wipe out the little man so they could control those businesses, take those businesses. I just want to let you know what's going on. Now, Zionists face, quote unquote, face many obstacles. The land they wanted was controlled by the Ottoman Empire, and Palestinian Arabs were already living in the region. Both the Ottoman and the Palestinian were predominantly Muslim, which added a religious aspect to the conflict. However, the Zionist movement grew in strength until 1948, when the modern country of Israel was founded. Now, let me say this. The Palestinians have been given that land in 1948. Prior to that, their families, the original Palestinians are the original Jews, their families have been living there. Today, Israel has leaders and officers that come right out of New York City. Tanya Netanyahu come right out of New York. A racist, poor Jew come right out of New York, got power, and he's worse than Hitler. Tanya Netanyahu is worse than Hitler. Killing innocent people, killing babies, bombing hospitals, arresting doctors saying they're guilty of treason. Brothers and sisters, my desire, my prayer is that you open your mind and your eyes It's my desire and my prayer. Now, all the government that said they had reform were the ones that were oppressing people. All the government reform under John Locke, social contract, tabula rasa, philosophies, Baron Montesquieu, Voltaire, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, all of them sponsored countries that supported slavery. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? When you become enlightened, you can't support the evil system. And you don't talk out both sides of your mouth. Now, what was the goal? We have to ask this question like this. What was the goal of the women's suffrage movement? What was the goal? Their goal was freedom, justice, and equality. So they had the women's suffrage movement, and they moved black women into that, like Mary McLeod Bethune, while the black man has a hard time finding a job and making his end meet. You'll give his wife a job. Ain't nothing changed, the same way today. And so it's the beginning of the breakdown of the black family. I hope you're with me, brothers and sisters. Because you have to understand, there's no advancement, none whatsoever. If the black man is down, the black woman is down. That family is down. Because they're united. And what they created depends on the both of them. But if that black man is down, that black woman is down. See? And the women's suffrage movement and women equality movement was to guarantee rights for white women and to use as a political ploy the, how do we put it? The population of black women to come along with quote unquote the same desires, which would further oppress the black man. Come on, brothers and sisters. You know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going with this. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed because the black man is still forced outside the home, not given any ability to work. So he has to create his job, which takes more energy, which gives him more gripe from his woman because she don't know any better. And when a child sees this back and forth, they begin to suffer. This is why parents, we encourage you to be nice before one another, be nice before your children to one another, and be sincere. And for both parents to embrace the children together, encourage them together, is very necessary. I don't care how young the kid is or how old they are. You got some 40-year-old children, 50-year-old children, 60-year-old children, 70-year-old children, 80-year-old children, 90-year-old children, and 100-year-old children that need encouragement from their families. This is how important this is. It's important for mothers to say, I love you. It's important for fathers to say, I love you. It's important for mothers and fathers to tell each other that they love each other. There's a reason for that. And to explain to their children the problems that are happening in the society and why it's so different. Black women, you won't make a black man productive fussing at him when the world won't hire him. You will not make him productive fussing at him when he has to make his own job and he has to push and make that valuable for the family. You fussing at him is not going to bring him one customer. Not one. Black man, you run around with some other woman or fussing with your woman for what she's not doing is not going to help that relationship. It's never been the black man against the black woman. That's a facade that was created when they merged black women into the movement, the women's suffrage movement. Now, which became the liberation movement for women. Are you following me? So they had this movie come out, 688. Am I saying it right? 688. And when that movie came out, Carrie Washington was displaying the strength of a black woman who was made an officer. They had black officers, male officers too. And the struggle she went through in the military or the military, and those that were with her. Right? And because of the pressure that the white man put on them, right, for what he didn't understand, a job that he couldn't do, I saw how the character was careful to make sure that the black man didn't feel less than a man. In the time period, those women still respected their friends, boyfriend, husbands, sons, fathers, brothers, uncles, grandfathers. They still respected them. You never saw a period where they were ripping these men down. Now, women were encouraged through Muslim girls civilization training and Muslim girls training. They were encouraged to encourage their male counterparts. Because culturally, they had something that belonged to them. Let's be plain. You'll never build up a black man by giving him a white man as a yardstick. You'll never do it. You'll never do it. You'll never build up a black man using a white man as a yardstick. He's not the yardstick to be measured because this is the one that's causing the black man the oppression. So you'll never build him up. Never build up a black man by constantly putting a white man in front of him. It'll never happen. It just won't happen. Now, so that means that since the white woman had her organization, the white man had his organization, right? The Jews have their organization. You need your organization. And this is why so much credit is given to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, the National Baptist Convention, the Progressive National Baptist Convention, the Seventh-day Adventists as it relates to black, this and Richard Allen with AME. This is why so much respect is given to black organization, because they can handle the things within their own community, spiritually, psychologically, aesthetically, culturally, right? They can handle things that involve the black community. So the black people, not the black woman alone, black people had to get their own organization so that they could handle the problems that were happening inside of their community. Problems of family, problems of employment, problems of education, problems of vocation, problems of religion. They could handle these things. Can't go to the white man and do it and ask him for identity. He's the one that took your identity. What's your name? I don't know it. What's your original language? I don't know it. This is all you could say. Where do you come from? Don't know that. Do your daddy know where he came from? Nope, he don't know. Your mom know where he came from? Nope, you don't know. Your grandma know? Nope, she don't know. Does your great grandma know? Nope, she don't know. Why? Because the man stole you from Africa, the continent, didn't allow you to keep any record to where you were from. You couldn't even speak that language or speak to other people that were from there. I hope you listen to me, brothers and sisters. So it made it difficult for you. It made it difficult for you to identify with anything of your past. So today, those that don't know and haven't did the research, religiously, socially, psychologically, aesthetically, culturally, they have no idea of who they are. None whatsoever. This was done, this tool was done to keep you oppressed. And outside of that, no matter where you came from, you could be from Nigeria, you could be from Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Gambia, Hausa Fulani, Kaduna State, Mauritania, no matter where you were from, Nigeria, Niger, no matter where you were from, Sudan, Kenya, they wouldn't mate you with another Kenyan. They wouldn't mate you with another Nigerian. They wouldn't do that. They'd lump you all in together. Right? The Tower of Babel. You couldn't understand one another. So you were no threat. Because you couldn't understand one another. And he forbade you to even write and talk to one another in that way. So what happened? You grabbed the king's language of Africa, which is Swahili, and you began to speak it. You began to develop some form of communication. After that, you began to corral with one another. And once you corral with one another, then you could build up defense systems, right? What do they call them? Revolts, slave revolts. Nat Turner, what did he do? He didn't only organize his plantation, he organized other plantations, no matter where he went, and gave them a certain date and time of when they were going to do something. Because I don't care where you are, there's always somebody that's willing to die for the cause. And back then, even more so. So they said, we got to do something else to separate these people. We got to stop the communication and all of that. So when you finished mating, you know what that devil did? That devil came and laid in your bed, in between your wife's legs, laid behind you, raped you as a man, raped your children, son and daughter, and produced with your wife, made a child and took that child to the house, and then had your wife to come to the house where he continued to have her and manipulate her because he had an offspring. This is where the social system began to happen. Because a lot of these white men refused to take care of these babies they were making in bondage. So they sent these babies to a social system and told them that they had to pay for them. So they gave them back to the mother and made the white man pay tariff. Now, when the white man began to pay taxes and pay support for these children, right? This was a source of income the government was making them do because they had to come out of slavery. Can't be in slavery no more. Because blacks had begun to learn his land, learn his country. There's a lot of revolts. They began to work with the red man. Red man began to work with them. There was a lot of successful slave revolts. And this part of history they won't tell you about. But just know that, I hate saying this, have to tell the truth. Just know that the Cherokee Indian owned slaves. So they was helping the white man. And that's why the Muskogee raised up within the Cherokee Nation and said, no, we won't do this. This is unheard of. It's evil. And this is how you really got all this war going on between the Native Americans. Because you had a lot of them that were fighting for their cousins and brothers in bondage. They began to recognize some of the people that were coming forth. And they could still speak the Ojibwe language, which comes from Africa. But they don't tell you that. They're not going to tell you that. And so they started rescuing them. The Seminole came in and started rescuing some people. The Catawani came in and started to rescue people. You had all of these indigenous African American natives came in and started rescuing people. And it caused great trouble for the white man. Great trouble. So they said, okay, you want to be free, we'll make you free. We'll give you some land. Let me tell you what these devils did. They gave you some land. They said, you free, we'll make you free. But after they did that, they said, you owe us for the land and the house on the land. You can stay here and work or you can leave. When the black folks were going to leave, what do you think that man did? Like Pharaoh, he ran after him and killed him. So then there was those that saw them killed and they wouldn't leave. The white man wasn't going to pay them. He forced them to stay on the plantation. This is the second evolution of slavery, which caused a greater revolt. If slavery was abolished in America in 1808, 4 years after the Louisiana Purchase, Nat Turner is fighting against slavery in 1830 because he could read, and he's raising up others that can read, including troops. Well, the later troops came from Harriet Tubman because Nat Turner was before Tubman. But if you can understand this, and understand the revolt, where you had John Brown afterwards, they knew that slavery had been abolished. And America was still going on their own way, keeping up slavery. So that's what I'm telling you. Laws mean nothing to this country. Laws don't mean anything to America. It's just a way of keeping you oppressed on the federal level. Then you have state laws and policies that are de facto regulations that keep you oppressed. So such as certain areas you can live in, right? Certain areas you could go. Certain areas where you could be at peace in, right? America doesn't respect any laws, but it's oppression of the black families because they have to make money off of you. When slavery was over, they moved you to sharecropping. When sharecropping was over, then they moved you on over to the prisons because they said you owed them a debt, and if you owed a person a debt, then you went to prison. The first people to deliver this were state troopers. Oh yes. They were called constables. This is how they had their jobs. And eventually it worked them up to be state police. To police anyone that wasn't paying their taxes, anyone that wasn't doing their farm work. They would take them and put them in state jails, state work farms, to work off the debt, or send them back to the plantation to work off the debt. They never worked those debts off. So what am I telling you? That the bondage is on purpose at a federal level, a state level, and then there's a local level of bondage. The local area that you live in, that put you in poor housing, give you poor jobs, poor education, poor time to have family relation. Huh? That's bondage. That's true bondage. And they do these things to keep you down, to keep you depressed, to keep you oppressed. Then you go to a church where the leader tell you, you'll understand it better by and by. Or by and by when the morning comes. All the saints of God are going home. We'll be gathering in glory, shouting how we overcome, and we'll understand it better by and by. So you have to wait till you get to heaven to be able to enjoy your freedom. Now, here's the other thing. If the white man's in heaven, I don't want to go because he's the one that made it hell on earth. You understand what I'm saying, brothers and sisters? So we got to be wise. We got to be steadfast, unmovable, and always abounding in the work of God. We've got to. We have no choice. We are the people of God, the sheep of his pasture. We need his direction to lead us. When you have local stress and the husband's not making enough money, what does the wife do? She puts stress on him. She don't mean it, brothers. She don't mean it. But she got to talk to somebody. She's dissatisfied. She got to talk to somebody, even knowing what's going on around her. The black woman has been oppressed and shamed and manipulated by the white woman to believe that her husband can have if he so desire, right? If he works hard enough. Where is she getting a lie from? She's getting a lie from the white man who's keeping the black man down. They have this game so duped. I mean, this game is so dope till they'll give one black man a job in the community out of every 100 and have the woman get mad, looking at her husband, get mad at him and asking, well, how come you can't do that? Now, here's the funny part. They'll give a job, one job to every 100 black men that come for application. The others that don't get the job get fussed at from their wife and all of that, and still make them try to live up to give them the things that white women have, or that the other token black people have to make successful, right? And there's no way the black man can do it. So the black woman gets dissatisfied. So either she finds a white man or another brother who's probably the one out of every 100 that's been blessed with a job and position. And she'll create infidelity in her family, and the man will do the same because he's dissatisfied and disgusted, which breaks up homes. But all of it is a trick and a facade. And the white man is the puppeteer of it all, right? To keep you in bondage, to keep you down. If you break up the black family will stay in bondage and it will become explosive. Why do you think you have so many explosive black families around today, brothers and sisters? We have to wake up. God is calling us to wake up so that we'll be able to save our children. We've got to wake up so we'll be able to save our children. There was a development of Africa called Afrikaans. A lot of you all know about it. They developed Africa, and what really scared them was the result of the Creole Revolution. Okay, because the Creole Revolution happened in 1860. When they first tried to put Africa in bondage, it was unsuccessful. You had too many people fighting. You had too many of them fighting. And it was very unsuccessful. Now, what I want you to know is, I want you to get rid of any notion that all the slaves came on a slave ship. I want you to get rid of that notion. It's impossible. Impossible. There's no way. Absolutely no way that they could have been successful, that successful with that many black people coming on the ship. And you see how small these ships are. No way. Not at all. But to put that in your psyche and make you not research your history here only gives you half of the story of where you come from. Because the indigenous foreparents you have come from two places. Africa for sure, and then America, indigenous America, Turtle Island, which is America. So they fell with this slavery in Africa. Africa was in its own land. So they had to get some from out of there. But they colonized Africa, and they still had a fight on their hands with Africans that were in their own country. You have to understand that. See, when you're in an area of your own, you can fight and you know the terrain and all of that. And even when they had you on the coastline, they had Aborigines and indigenous people fighting, so they couldn't even get all of you on the ship. They killed so many slave traders on the coast. I'm just letting you know, brother. The result of the Creole Revolution. Let's read that. Because that's what you and I are in, a revolution. Black men, black women are in a revolution to regain status of independence. You've been in that revolution ever since the invader came to Africa. You've been in that revolution ever since they put you on a slave ship. You've been in that revolution ever since you come here to America, brothers and sisters. You're in a revolution. You're in the war. We say generically that will there be race war in 2025? Why? Because you've been in a revolution. And the man see you evolving, and they just don't know what to do with you. The results of the Creole Revolution, although the constitution of the newly independent countries in Latin America legally ended slavery and some social distinctions, governments were often conservative. The first constitution of Peru, for example, forbade voting by those who could not read or write Spanish, which effectively denied most indigenous people to vote until the Constitution was changed in 1860 because they couldn't read the English or French. The Creoles formed powerful and conservative upper class as they had before the wars of colonial independence. Listen, brothers and sisters. Women gained little from the revolutions in Latin America. They were still unable to vote or enter into contract. Most women received little education until the late in the 19th century, and most remained submissive to men. One notable exception, Manuela Sáenz, 1797 to 1856, who was the lover of Simon Bolivar. She actively participated in fighting alongside Bolivar, for example, in 1822, in the Battle of Quito, Ecuador. An excellent writer as well as courageous fighter, she rose to the rank of colonel. On one occasion, she saved Bolivar's life, for which she conceived the nickname Liberator of the Liberator. Now, let's make a connection here. In a brief paragraph, we're going to make a connection between the Creole elites and revolution in Latin America. Little challenges to the Spanish colonialism. Spain's grip on the part of its empire lasted throughout the 19th century. In the Caribbean, Puerto Rico and Cuba were among its final colonial holdings. Both islands saw uprisings against the Spaniards' rule beginning in the year 1868. While many individuals and organizations contributed to the spirit of revolution in Puerto Rico, the role of Lola Rodriguez de Tio was unique. A recognized poet during the era of little educational opportunity for women, Rodriguez de Tio became famous for her eloquent critiques of Spain's exploitive rule over Puerto Rico. Her home became a meeting place for political thinkers and revolutionaries. At such meetings, she began to read lyrics to a revolutionary song, Le Borriquita, which encouraged her fellow Puerto Ricans, awake from your sleep. Le Borriquita, awake from your sleep, for it is time to fight. In 1868, uprisings forced Rodriguez de Tio in exile in Venezuela. She was allowed to return in 1885, but her critical writings again ended in exile, this time in Cuba, and there she wrote and worked for Cuban independence, earned her exile from there to New York. She continued to Cuba in 1899 and spent the remaining years as a campaigner for social justice there. What is that saying? What is that saying? All right. What united the Creole? When we say Creole, we have to think of Venezuela. We have to think of Spain. We have to think of Haiti. We have to think of the Bahamas, much of the Bahamas. Because when you say Creole, you're talking about Spanish, French, African, and in some respects, Indian, whether north or west. whether East or West India. So, in saying that, when Haiti began to get word, this is how I work with oppressed people, because they're all feeling the same thing. When Haiti began to get word that Puerto Rico and Venezuela are fighting for their rights, what happens? The French are there, the French lose. The Spanish are there, and they lose. So that means that the revolutionaries have taken over. They began to believe that they could do it too. They began to look at their numbers, assess their surroundings. Many revolutionaries were willing to die. They began to share these ideals, these goals. Like Rodriguez de Tio. Share these goals. What do we have to lose? Wake up, my brothers and sisters. Wake from your sleep, for it's time to fight. And this began to translate among the oppressed. When Haiti is rising up in 1793, you had other slave revolts in America through Louisiana that are rising up. In Florida, rising up. They began to turn over the slave ships because they had to come here, stop in Florida, go to Puerto Rico. They began to turn over the slave ships. Many of them began to we'll die. We'll die. We'll jump in this water. We'll die before we go over there and be slaves. Today, you've gotten to a point where you could see that the white man is losing power. You can see that his racism has become the best weapon against him. Not for him. This is the best weapon against him. So you begin to use this in reverse. See? He knows that you're ready for a revolution. But it's your time. You got to figure when you're going to do this and what time you're going to make that decision and what kind of revolution it's going to be. Stop letting your enemy give you a death sentence. Stop letting your enemy determine how you're going to fight. And there's no way that black people can have a revolution and you got white people sprinkled in your movement. Brothers and sisters, it won't happen. When this time comes, you're going to have to stand on your own. Because remember, I tell you, I'm not causing any trouble. I'm just telling you the truth. Here in America, the white man is the enemy. And white people here in America, they're going to support one another. They're not wrong for that. They're not wrong for that. You're wrong if you don't support one another. They're going to keep you out of their camps. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's something wrong if you don't keep them out of your camp. Because now you know he's killing you anyway. When you know that he's going to kill you and you're going to die, you ain't got nothing to lose. That's the good thing. The good thing about overcoming the fear of death. It's a good thing about it. You don't have anything to lose. But you found something that you're willing to die for so that the children and generations that come can see freedom. And when a man has found something that he's willing to die for, he's dangerous. When a woman has found something they're willing to die for, they're dangerous. This is the reason they don't want you to have any leaders to lead you straight down the straight and narrow. They'll give you leaders that will mislead you. These leaders will live to be 90 and 100 years old, still saying the government's trying to kill them. I had to throw that in there. I mean, this government killed its own president, killed several presidents, assassinated them, assassinated several presidents. Among them, the most notable, Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy. This government shot President Reagan. This government had it set up. Had it all set up. And we know it. People know it. Investigation going on. They know it's a farce. People want to know who killed John Kennedy, who killed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They know it was a government operation. They know it. They know it was. That's why Trump released the paperwork. The King family said they want to see. Before anybody else get it, they want to know. The Kennedy family probably already knows. They've had privilege to that paperwork. They already know. But that you may wake up. Brothers and sisters, I don't know if you're ready for it. But when the operations collide, it may be a race war in 2025. When the operations collide, there may be a race war in 2025. Because there are people now that are marching with weapons, white people, putting on hoods, and I'm telling you, they're getting armed. That doesn't mean anything. You get armed too. If they armed, you get armed. Protect your family. Protect your family. These are things that you're willing to die for. You should be willing to die for. Protect your family. God has commissioned you to protect your family. You're not being a good Christian or a good Muslim, letting somebody come in and kill your family. No, sir, no, ma'am. But you've got white people literally out killing black folks. And you got black people killing black people. And you got black people killing you got black people killing black people for white people. Because the white man to kill his own wife and kill his own kid, he don't care. But those that will assimilate the same evils, these are dangerous people. So I tell you, say salat to your God. Keep your eyes open. Love your family to protect them. And continue to pray to God that he will guide you. And at the hour when you need it most for the protection of your family or anything God has given you or deemed necessary, pray that God will guide you and keep your actions ever before you of what you should do. That he will even speak for you and move your limbs in the hour of need. That's my desire and prayer, that you will lean on God. Don't worry about Donald Trump. We're oppressed because the system keeps us oppressed and divided. So we say the black family is oppressed, the black family is oppressed. On a micro level and a macro level, the black family is oppressed. But that's not our end. If we keep our mind on God, we know what this man will do. He's showed us he's a killer. He's already showed us he's a killer. He's already showed us. But seek God. Truly seek God, the real God, brothers and sisters. Not this God you've been given. But seek the real God and you will get guidance. Protect your family. That's your right. That's your God-given right. God has called you to protect your family. Shame on you if you don't. Black women and black men. Black children, listen to your mom and dad. Dad and mom love and hug each other before the children. Let the children see that you love one another. Children, hug your parents. Tell them you love them. Be obedient. Parents, don't compromise your children by putting them in public schools and put them around other kids. The public schools are dangerous. The public schools are dangerous. It's another place where black people are oppressed. Start homeschooling your children. Our children need to be in protection now. You got a devil in office for sure now that are igniting teachers to kill kids. Black kids are being killed by teachers, by policemen, by daycare centers, and yes, by white churches and white preachers. So you got to get wise and you got to get intelligent and organize yourself to protect your family, to teach them and guide them in the admonition of God, to teach them the scriptures, to give them home education, to keep them intelligent, and keep the bond of family close. That way it's not interrupted. Brothers and sisters, I've said enough. And if I haven't said more, charge it to my head and not to my heart. I love you, brothers and sisters. I ask that you love your family. Wife, love your husband. Husband, love your wife. Brother and sister, if you're together, dwelling together, love one another. Be great examples in front of the children. Children, love your parents. Do what your parents tell you. Hug them and let them know you love them. Parents, don't provoke your children, but protect them. Protect them. You seek guidance, then you have a number to call. We have a support system. You're always able to reach it in the link in our system, and we will guide you the best way we can. And remember, love ye one another in purity, in deed, and may your work show your deeds, and may God be pleased with the sacrifices you make unto him as you serve mankind, humankind, human and man. If I didn't say it in the beginning, I say to you now, Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you. The peace that only God can give. The peace that surpasses all understanding, brothers and sisters, and will lead you on the path of righteousness. I say to you again, Assalamu alaikum, peace be unto you.